Alright guys, so next tutorial we're going to be doing some wood grain. For this I'm just going to use a 6x12 aluminum license plate blank. All I'm going to do first is scuff it up with a red Scotch-Brite and then shoot maybe one or two light coats of adhesion promoter on it. Alright, so we're all scuffed. All I'm going to do now, I have some wax and grease remover here in this spray bottle. Just going to squirt that down. I did already go ahead and tack rag that, but I'm just going to squirt it down with the wax and grease remover. Grab an old t-shirt, wipe it down. And give that a second to dry off. For our adhesion promoter, I'm using Duplicolor adhesion promoter. You can get this at really any auto parts store. I got this at Pep Boys just down the street from me for like $8. And really, this stuff goes a long way, guys. I've painted a lot of things with just this one can. And that's really all we need. So the first color we're going to be using, we're only using 3 colors in this whole tutorial. I'll be using yellow, transparent root beer, and burnt umber. So the first color I'm using right now is Wicked. You can see I got this as Hobby Lobby for $5.99. Of course, use a 40% coupon. This is 0052 Detail Yellow. Straight out of the bottle. You can use a drop or two reducer if you really want. And all I'm going to do now, I've got it loaded up in my Patriot 105. Just go in. And paint the whole plate yellow. Alright, so really this is what we're looking for, just a flat tone of yellow. I'm going to go ahead and shoot just a little bit more on here. Drying with the air as I go. And it really doesn't take much, guys. I think I had the cup completely full the first time and I put about 4 or 5 more drops in. And there we go. We are ready to go in with the second color. Alright, so like I said, we're using 3 colors for this whole tutorial. We use the Detail Yellow to get our base color down on top of the aluminum plate. So all we're going to do now with the second color is just going to be Transparent Root Beer. This is part number 4248 from Auto Air, Transparent Root Beer. And the third color, what we're going to use to push that root beer back a little bit, is some Detail Burnt Umber from Wicked, 0069. Wicked Detail Burnt Umber. And those are the only 3 colors you're really going to need. Now, you can adjust this however you see fit. If you need it darker, you could shade it with some black. If you'd like it lighter, you could tint it with some white. Or a better option to get your darks really dark. Say I wanted this burnt umber to go really, really dark. Instead of adding straight black, a better option is going to be violet. This is Autoborn Violet 4706. But really any violet or purple that you have would be a better option as opposed to you just using straight black to shade it. It's just more natural looking, more realistic. And we'll see how it looks getting towards the end. I may do that, I may not. I really don't have any sort of layout in mind for the plate itself. I'm just going to go in and start making what looks like wood grain. The only other thing I did not mention that you will need is a hairy paintbrush. And I don't have one within reaching distance, but we will be also using a hairy paintbrush. Right, so there's the brush we're going to be using, just an 1.5 inch wide paintbrush. As you can see, it's been trimmed. Some of the bristles are uneven. Some are longer, some are shorter. And you can see it has sort of a curve to it. But that's kind of what you want. So that's the other tool we're going to be using, aside from the airbrush, to create this wood grain effect. Alright, so for the transparent root beer layer, really all we're doing is a series of dagger strokes. Just all across the whole surface, just going back and forth, making lines. They don't have to be straight. Build it up in light layers. Alright, so we have a series of dagger strokes with our transparent root beer. Really not putting in any sort of detail right now. Just getting the lines in, just to know where this wood grain is going to go. And you can even start pushing that yellow back. Start to shade it. Drying with the air. Start to shade that yellow a little bit. In the end, we're not wanting really any of that yellow to show up. Just keep working back and forth, dagger stroke, dagger stroke. Since we're working with a transparent color, obviously we're going to have to build this up in layer after layer after layer. Going really broad here. Tint some of that yellow. And already you can see that's starting to look really good. I'm going to continue that off camera and get it to our next step where we go in with our burnt umber. Alright, scratch that. I'm not continuing this off camera. Wouldn't be much of a tutorial if I did, right? What I was trying to do was save space on my iPhone. But what I did was I grabbed my Canon T3i and set that up on the tripod, and now you can continue to watch. Unfortunately, it is a little dark. I did not set up my studio lights. But I can probably correct that. Not a big deal. So yeah, really all we're doing right now, series of dagger strokes. Laying out where we want that grain to be. You can see I'm working back and forth. Sometimes I'm going just straight across, just like this. Others I'm working back and forth on that dagger stroke just to continue it across. And I'm constantly checking the value of that yellow. That's going to get pushed way, way back with that burnt umber. It's going to that burnt umber, when we lay that in, that's going to push this way back and pretty much eliminate all of that yellow. Little dust piece in there. I'm trying to work it out. If you guys saw the guitar case that I did for the BC Rich Warlock, this is exactly the same way I did that guitar case. And up to that point, I had never attempted wood grain before. My buddy called me up and said, "Hey, I have this cool guitar case. Let's do something to it." Okay. He decided on the theme, and the rest, as they say, is history. Push that yellow back. It does provide an excellent base, though, for this effect. I don't think there's any other technique that I would use other than starting out with this yellow, but this is the way that I do it. Maybe you've seen other tutorials that kind of work better for you, but this is what works for me, and I think it looks decent, so I figured I'd show you. Again, right now we are still with the transparent root beer from Auto Air. I'm using my Patriot 105. Alright, now I think that's starting to look pretty good. Really starting to come together. Looking a lot like wood grain. But now we need to put in some knots. And the way I worked those out on the guitar case was with that hairy paintbrush that I showed you guys earlier. And this is the way that I did it. Basically, just flooded a huge area. Took this paintbrush in, spread that paint right out. You can see you are going to knock that back some. Use the air from your airbrush just to dry it. And this can also, this will also help you get some more of that grain look. More texture, just more texture. It's really what this effect is about, just texture like crazy. We're going to do that all over the plate. Of course, fill up your airbrush when it runs out of paint. I'm really not reducing this paint much, guys. I tend to reduce a little bit in the bottle as soon as I get it. I will add a touch of reducer. So what I'm spraying out of the airbrush right now is really straight out of the bottle. There you can see how much paint I'm loading up there, and a lot of that is really getting on the bristles of the brush. We're not leaving a whole lot on the surface. And you can go in and you can dry brush it if you want. You know, use it with the bristles facing that way, vertical, horizontal, however you want. Now I know we said we're doing knots, and I've kind of made a liar out of myself, haven't I? Not doing knots. I'm accentuating a lot of that grain we already have worked in. Now you can see there how that's starting to look like a knot, and we'll go in and we'll refine that. And I'm just doing a series of dagger strokes in here, just as we've done the whole time. There I just flooded a flat tone right over top of it. And again, coming in with the brush and making more texture in there. This I really don't like over here. You can see where that's really kind of separated. I want this to blend out more. So come in, we're just going to flood that. And blend it out this way. That's looking much better right there. Much better. All I'm doing here, I'm just assessing the whole thing. Step back once in a while, take a quick look at it. How does it look? How does the grain look? And remember those original dagger strokes we put in, that was really just an underpainting for this brush technique. And I'm not going to claim to have invented this technique. I'm sure I've seen it somewhere. And if I could give credit to that original artist where I picked this up, I would. But I don't remember who you were. So we're going in a nice mixture of freehand and the brush technique, and that's really what melds this whole effect together. I really do like this effect. It's so effective. It's very simple to do. And really, you can't spend a lot of time working everything back and forth. Obviously, since this is a tutorial, I don't want to spend hours and hours on it as I did that guitar case, but I found myself even forgetting that I'm filming, and I remind myself, oh, you should be talking. I'm sure these guys are wondering what the hell you're doing. It's easy just to get in here and get lost. There we go, working this knot again. Series of dagger strokes. And I'm probably, I don't know, an inch, 3/4 of an inch away from the surface. And then you can see just by working those dagger strokes out, how this knot is really kind of coming to life. I'm going to go back through and dry brush it, add some more texture and more texture and more texture. That's what this effect is all about, guys. Texture. That's really all it is. And this paintbrush, I mean, this was, I don't know, $1, $2 at the hardware store. And you don't have to trim it the way I did. I think when I painted the guitar case, this was not trimmed at all. And I used the same technique. The only reason why I trimmed it was because a lot of the bristles were starting to stick together on the end, because I didn't clean the paintbrush when I was done. And again, this is still one color, guys. Transparent root beer over top of our base yellow. So as you can see, you know, yeah, it's a mixture of freehand and the brush technique. You could probably do this all freehand if you want. It would be a lot more time consuming, but if you got the time, why not? So, I think that's really about it for the transparent root beer. I think it's looking pretty good. Let's grab some burnt umber. Alright, so for a burnt umber, I'm not even really cleaning out the cup. I didn't flush it. All I did was just poured out the root beer that was in there, wiped it out, not even flushing it. I'm adding our burnt umber straight in there. Just a few drops at a time is really all you're going to need. Now, I know I mentioned before I usually tend to reduce a little bit in the bottle as I get them. I did not do that with the burnt umber, so I'm just going to add a few drops, if I can get the airbrush in frame, a few drops of the high performance reducer, W500 or Auto Air 4012. I love this stuff. Gonna give it a shake in the cup. And I like to mix in the cup, especially with gravity feds. What I'm gonna do here, I'm gonna kind of back flush. I'm gonna screw this air cap off just a little bit. Add the air. Pull back on the trigger just a touch, and you can see it bubbling in the cup there, sort of. It's really hard to get the right angle for you, I'm sorry. And that'll mix everything up for me. Paint reducer, all mixed. Everything nice. So, our burnt umber. I'm really going to go in and just flat tone this whole thing. What I'm looking to do is push the darks back. Really not looking to go into oblivion with the darks, but I want this yellow tint, I want that completely gone. And you can add in some new grain, you can add in details with this burnt umber. It's all up to you. Staying back a couple inches, just light layers. And this is really starting now to look like a heavily stained piece of wood and less like an aluminum plate. Go ahead and add some more grain with this burnt umber. Just dagger stroking right across the whole plate. Remember to stop and take a step back periodically, assess the work. Make sure it's looking just how you want it. Obviously, if you're working with a client, you want to send them work in progress pictures, so it's going in the same direction that they have in mind. Make sure you do mock-ups. I did a whole mock-up in Photoshop of that guitar case and emailed them back and forth with my buddy, because I'm in Ohio, he's in Florida. Obviously, you can't see what I'm working on, so yep, this is how it was done. That whole guitar case. And I really wanted to get this tutorial out a lot sooner. We're now in March of 2014. I painted that guitar case back in July of 2013. I really wanted to get this tutorial out a lot quicker, but life gets in the way. Work expects you to show up on time. Bank wants you to pay your mortgage. Who wants to be responsible when there's airbrushing to do, right? Come on. So yeah, I think we're looking pretty good there. One last little thing we need to add. Well, we don't need to add it, but I want to add it. I think it'll be a cool little effect. But for all intents and purposes, guys, at this point, as you're seeing it, this is the finished wood grain.